conferenza stampa di Irishman. Con grande piacere vi presento la produttrice del film, è la Tillinger Koskov e Mr. Martin Scorsese. Vi ricordo solo che il film sarà disponibile dal 27 novembre su Netflix e sarà invece dal 4 novembre nelle sale. In attesa delle vostre domande vorrei cominciare io con una domanda per Mr. Scorsese. Il film ci immerge in un mondo che lei ha spesso frequentato, un mondo cinematograficamente frequentato in molti altri film, ma mi sembra che la grande novità di questo film sia il punto di vista, cioè un punto di vista, uno sguardo completamente diverso. Se può raccontarci di questa scelta e di questa diversa prospettiva.
Well, I think it has to do with Robert De Niro and I wanting to make another film. The last film we made together was Casino in 1995. And over the years we tried to find the right subject matter and the character to work together on. But ultimately, he was given this book called I Heard You Paint Houses, and we had planned to do another film, and he read this book instead. He said, take a look at this, and he described the character to me of Frank. And as he was describing the character, he became very emotional and not articulate, doesn't need to be articulate, but the emotion that he exhibited was articulation enough that I knew that there was something special, particularly if we're going to go back into the same milieu of Goodfellas or even Casino, then it would have to be something that I sensed from his reaction to the character. It would have to be something where we find something else, we go deeper, I think. And what we realized, because the film was delayed a number of times, and over the years what we realized, the perspective that we had is our own age, and trying to depict a whole life. A life, it's about time, mortality, love, betrayal, remorse, and ultimately the mortality of all of us. And so we had that perspective. We didn't really talk about that. When I got Steve's Alien, I said that's what I wanted to try to do. Take it, all the other business about who shot who and where, you know, the world is falling apart around them on television, and certain mobsters are killed, or they're not killed, by whom, we're not quite sure. But ultimately, all of this passes away in time, and he's left alone. And without, how should I say, without almost experiencing it, he's experienced a whole life, you see. And so that's really where we felt comfortable. And I thought with Bob that he had the same feelings about it. We didn't really articulate. I articulated to Steve's Alien. I said I want it to be about mortality and about ultimately the unraveling of a life, you know, or maybe not the unraveling, but the living of a life. And so in any event, this was the approach we took. That's how it started.
Emma, questo film sembra la naturale prosecuzione della collaborazione tra Scorsese e De Niro. Perché avete ritenuto che un film ambientato in quegli anni che raccontasse questo intreccio di storie così complesso fosse rilevante oggi?
I think the themes that are explored in the film are relevant in, you know, every time period. I think it was the perfect project for them to reunite and do together. They were both, as Marty said, extremely passionate about the material in the book. And I think, again, you know, the themes across the board are what make it relevant. You know, that they were, help me out, Marty.
Yeah, no, it's just that you don't have to have, a film doesn't have to be set in a contemporary milieu in order for it to be contemporary. Because what's contemporary is the human condition. What's contemporary is the human heart. And the moral conflicts. That's what's contemporary. It plays out in something like the past, whatever that is. Okay? It plays out that way. But it's about the immediate human experience that I think some aspects of, if it connects to people, some aspects of this particular man or his thoughts or his emotions, his feelings, his decisions, his morality, immorality, could be accessible to people who are not necessarily in that milieu.
Allora, cominciamo con delle domande. C'è una domanda lì intanto, in alto.
Salve, Francesco Gallo, Agenzia ANSA. Un po' l'ha già detto lei, il film parla molto del tempo, cioè del tempo che passa, della finis vitae, e c'è quindi c'è un aspetto molto malinconico. Volevo capire se questo che io ho visto in qualche modo lo condivide e se c'è anche qualcosa paradossalmente di religioso in questo film, cioè lui che prega, tutto qua, grazie.
Well, certainly there's a religious aspect to it, their content, there's no doubt about it. I think you're dealing with the human condition, whether one believes in religion or not, there is an attempt at a contemplation of what we would call the abstract, the spirit, religion, if you want to use that word. There's certainly that. The melancholy is there, but I think it's a comfortable melancholy. Yeah, he cut his family off, he's left alone, all that conflict, all that violence, and he's all in the past now. Nobody even remembers it, really. And I think the melancholy is just the acceptance of dying being a part of living. As much as one can accept the fact of your own mortality. You can fight it, but we have to. There's a melancholy that overtakes one, depending on. Of course, we're speaking from a position of how should I put it? A peacetime, in a sense, society, where ultimately it's the acceptance of the end of life.
Salve, sono Caprara della Stampa e volevo chiedere due cose. Una, condividere appunto con il signor Scorsese il fatto che in questo film per la prima volta, che è un problema che certe volte ci siamo posti vedendo i film in cui si parlava di delinquenti, di mafia eccetera, non c'è neanche un attimo in cui c'è il pericolo che diventino piacevoli, che diventino eroi o che possano essere affascinanti. E questo secondo me è assolutamente unico. E poi volevo chiedere se per favore ci raccontava qualche cosa di questa lavorazione straordinaria con due attori come Pacino e Niro, che cosa ha chiesto loro prima delle riprese. Grazie.
Well, in terms of depicting these characters, we just pretty much, it was something that I had sensed growing up in an area of New York that had that element in it. And I sensed power, and I sensed, I don't know, I just sensed there was the drama was usually underplayed, in a sense. So, how should I put it? There was no need for, any longer, for a kind of the, how should I put it, exalting of the crime figure the way the American gangster film had with Scarface with Paul Muni and Public Enemy with Jimmy Cagney. And even in those, the public demanded that the gangster, whom they idolized really, falls by the end of the story. There was a way of cathartic a reaction to the gangster genre reflected in a society, or a country I should say, that was filled with this opportunity and was a new country, and they wanted to see this played out morally up on the screen. You had the Western, you had the gangster genre in the Western genre. But in this case, there was no need for any of that. It's all past, in a way. Their lives, decisions were made, and actions were taken, almost to the point where the military, in a way, where things had to be done. And emotions may be there, but we never thought in the film of how should I say, making it spectacular. You know, we'd hoped that the spectacle was interior. That was the idea. And then working with De Niro again after 23 years or so was really, we didn't really even have to say very much at this point, having gotten through that book and then the script, discussions here and there, basically. And once I saw how Steve Zalian laid out the structure and how Bob reacted to it, I said, I know how to make the picture then. And it had to have this kind of stripped down visual and narrative approach, rather than explaining everything, just staying with the character and letting everything happen the way he perceives it. Because he doesn't know everything. Thinks he does, but he doesn't. Just as we are. The news is on television, there's missiles in Cuba, there's Watergate, nobody knows what's happening. And this is all out of our control, just as our mortality is. And so that was the impulse. Al Pacino I never worked with before. I first met him in 1970. Francis Coppola introduced me. And over the years, one project we almost did together was on Modigliani, the painter, in the 80s, but that didn't come off. And in effect, we always try to work together. But he's been, you know, Coppola and De Palma and Lumet and so many great directors and filmmakers. But what we felt there was Bob's idea to have Al play Jimmy Hoffa. And what we felt really, I think you can see it in the film, so much comes from the actual relationship of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. That's who you see up there. They respect and love each other as professionals, as people. They had their own relationship over the past 40 years. I just knew Al in passing, basically. And we always tried to work together, but we couldn't. And so that was something, they all felt that they were doing something special. That's the other thing. They felt there was something happening that was unique. And they were all, Bob and Al particularly, constantly present, constantly. You know, even to the point where they were tired and I said, no, you can't shoot. They wanted to. You know, and, along with the digital effects, the film did take a long time to shoot, but the digital effects worked out. It was an experiment, and I think was the only way for us to make the film, because otherwise about half the film would have to have been done by other young actors playing the young De Niro, the young Pacino, and the young Pesci, and I just didn't want to do that. I mean, maybe if I was 20 years younger, I could do that, but I don't want. We want to make a film with our friends, you know. And so Netflix came in, and because in Hollywood, anywhere really, we couldn't get the money to make the picture. Nobody would give it to us that it needed. And ultimately Netflix came in, said we'd support you financially, including this experiment with Industrial Light and Magic, Pablo Hellman, ILM, and the shooting days, and complete creative freedom was the key. And also an extra 6 months in post-production because of the CGI. So like I'm 6 months behind on everything now. I owe, you know, I'm just like 6 months, I should have been making another film, we had other things to do. Nah, forget it. I'm 6 months late.
Mr. Scorsese, questo film conclude anche un'epoca. Si può dire che mette la parola fine a un'epoca di mafiosi, di come lei li conosceva, e in qualche modo mi ricorda Once Upon a Time in America di Sergio Leone. E anche quello era un film che sembrava raccontare un'epoca e concluderla, con lo stesso sguardo verso la mortalità e l'immortalità e la fine e il rimorso per ciò che è stato fatto male e si poteva fare diversamente. Grazie.
Good. Bene. It's a masterpiece. Once Upon a Time in America is a masterpiece. What can I say? I didn't think of that when making the film. I didn't think about it.
Buongiorno, Giulia Bianconi del Tempo. Volevo chiedere, appunto prima parlava di Netflix, lei ha sempre difeso l'importanza delle sale cinematografiche, adesso invece appunto ha fatto questa produzione per Netflix, quindi c'è un'apertura nei confronti dello streaming. E poi volevo chiedere una seconda cosa: nei suoi film i protagonisti sono sempre maschili, come mai non ha mai trovato una storia di donne che le interessasse? Grazie.
No, that's not even a valid point. That's not valid. It just, I can't. That goes back to 1970. You know, that's a question that I've had for so many years. Am I supposed to? Meaning?
No.
No, I mean, if the story doesn't call for it, I can't. It's a waste of everybody's time. If the story calls for a female character lead, why not? Oh, well, that's only one film. They don't count that. They don't count that, no. Age of Innocence, they don't count that. Casino, Sharon Stone's great in it. They don't count. They don't count. No. It's very funny. Sure, I'd like to do. But you know what? I'm 76 now. How am I going to have the time? I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. I don't have time anymore. I don't know what's happening. So, what was the first part of the question? Oh, Netflix, yes. In order to see a film in a theater, you need to see the film. In other words, the film has to be made. Whether you see it in a theater, whether you see it streamed on TV, whether you see it on these kids looking at it on iPad, you know, or on a phone, I don't even know. I mean, in order to see these things, they have to be made. And what's happened is that the films that I have had the luck over the years of getting made, usually, I don't know how, each one was its own universe, so to speak. In some cases, the power of the star, in the case of De Niro or DiCaprio, got the film made, helped me get made. But it can't be done anymore. The kind of picture I made. Let's say I was 30 years younger. I wouldn't be able to make films in Hollywood. I mean, the last 10 years, my films have been independent financing under difficult circumstances. Struggling. In this case, in the case of De Niro and myself, feeling that we could maybe sum up something that we had charted since 1970, you know, in our lives and in our work, nobody would give us the money. And in this case, Netflix stepped up, financed it completely, and with total creative freedom. The trade-off was that it gets streamed, yet it's still shown in theaters. Now, that was a good deal, I thought, under the circumstances. Sometimes, for me, for example, we have this film playing, I think, 4 weeks in a theater in New York before it streams, right? Okay. Often, a number of times in my career, some of my pictures played 2 weeks and were closed. King of Comedy and a couple of others. They're gone. This is a risk we all take. I'm glad to take the 4 weeks at this point. you know. But that's not the point. I think that ultimately...
Also, it stays in theaters
while
it's streaming.
While it's streaming, it's going to be seen in theaters.
As well.
So, yeah. I mean, I only make... the only way I can make a film is really for one thing, for a screen, and with an audience like this, right here, you know, watching the film. But a lot of my films, and a lot of the films I saw over the years, were seen in different venues. Black and white TV, video, you know. And so ultimately, you really don't have control as to how your film is seen. And what's new now, I think, is the possibilities of cinema. It's endless now in terms of how films will be seen, or what films will be called films. They're all changing. You know, some might be a minute, some might be a hologram, some might be virtual reality. We don't know. You know, yes, it's always best to see a film in a theater. There's no doubt. But first, you got to get the film made. You see, and on top of that, it's the key that I'm hoping for is for theaters to continue to support narrative cinema of this kind. Made obviously by other people like Noah Baumbach, actually it's Netflix too. Wes Anderson, all these, Paul Thomas Anderson, that these films have theaters that you could see the film in, that the theaters support the films. But right now, the theaters seem to be mainly supporting the theme park, the amusement park films, you know, the comic book films. They're taking over the theaters, and I think they can have those films, it's fine, it's just that that shouldn't become what our young people believe is cinema, okay? So in a sense, all bets are off. You can show your film anywhere, anyhow, as long as you get it done and shown, you know, get it out there. And I think we have to stop thinking in a rigid way. Yes, the best way is always in the theater. There's no doubt, the communal experience, you know. But if it can't be, it can't be. Somehow, at some point in time, it will be shown in the theater. You know, even if it's made directly for your telephone.
Hello, Mr. Scorsese. Congratulations for your masterpiece. There is a scene very close to the ending of the film. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I will use it as a narrative hook for my question. When the nurse, we realize that she doesn't know who is Hoffa. I think that seems like a comment of yours to society and the lack of education for repeating the same mistakes. Am I true? Is that your point of view?
No, it could be. It could be. It's more than a criticism. It's an observation. I think even if you want to, people will not remember. In other words, because they have not experienced it. It's like a friend of mine, his friend Leibowitz, said her father at one point when they had television in her house when she was growing up, he said, "In my day, we didn't have television." And she looked at him and said, "Well, we do." Meaning that there's no way I can understand your experience without television in the past, because I did not live in the past. This is the world we live in. Our children are, I don't know what they're doing with those devices. You know what I'm saying? They perceive reality differently. They perceive even the concept of what history is supposed to be. You know, how are they going to know about World War II? How are they going to know about Vietnam? What do they think of Afghanistan? What do they think of all of this? They're perceiving it in bits and pieces. And there seems to be no continuity of history, you know. The fact that Jimmy Hoffa is unknown so quickly is really quite sad, because he was a remarkable figure. I mean, yeah, he got involved with things that are questionable, to say the least, but he was a remarkable figure in the unions. When they put him in jail for 5 years, he came out, and he had a plan for revising the prison system. He organized guys in prison, so you don't have to live like this. Now, this is the guy, you know, and ultimately, so this is a very special person, but as well known as he was, time, you know, time just wiped him away. The unions went. In that sense, the fights, don't forget, he came out of the Depression. And, you know, as much as what I think is interesting, as much as my parents could tell me about the Depression, and we read about the Depression, and we see the films of the filmmakers in the 40s who came out of the Depression, and, you know, all of this sort of thing, we didn't experience it. So we don't know it firsthand. And this is sad, in a way. I mean, we're lucky to a certain extent, but we can never experience the past the way those who lived in the past have experienced it. And so that's just a fact of life. So she doesn't know who Jimmy Hoffa is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know? That's the beauty of the melancholy of the film. He knows it doesn't matter anymore.
C'è una domanda lì in mezzo?
Salve, lei ha tutta la sua carriera sviluppato un'esperienza incredibile di rapporti con i grandi studi e poi di filmmaking indipendente. Da come ha descritto questo progetto sembra abbastanza chiaro che questo sia un progetto per lei, come spesso lei ha detto, fa dei film per sé e dei film per lo studio. Questo sembra un film fatto per lei. Tuttavia è un film da 160 milioni di dollari, fatto per una compagnia che adesso sta nella MPAA, quindi è un grande studio. Quindi, per questo le chiedo, come lo considera? Un film fatto per se stesso o un film fatto per un grande studio?
No, that's a good question because I think it was made for ourselves. This quote, studio, unquote, whatever it is, sorry, Netflix, whatever that is, supported us. That's the difference. They supported the filmmakers. Me, Zalian, Niro, Pacino, Pesci, you know. And all of us, they supported us. Yes, we had to work hard, you know. And yes, the film was costly. If they did not support this film, the film would not have been made. There was no way it would have been.
Buongiorno, volevo farle due domande. Vedendo il film stamattina mi è sembrato che in qualche modo il suo modo di fare il cinema negli Stati Uniti in qualche modo è come se questo fosse paradossalmente l'ultimo film di un'epoca, di tutta un'epoca iniziata a metà degli anni 60, quando si parlava del rinnovamento del cinema americano. Quindi mi ha molto commosso vedere un film che si prende tutto questo tempo, il lavoro con gli attori e così via. E poi una domanda cinefila. Nel film ci sono due omaggi, uno alla Contessa Scalza di Mankiewicz con la musica e uno ad Anna di Lattuada. Volevo capire come questi due omaggi cinefili sono finiti nel film. Grazie.
Well, it has more to do with the music. I mean, the other tribute is Tushpao Grisby, Jack Becker film, which is what I showed De Niro because I thought that he began to look like Jean Gabin in Casino some scenes. He's looking like an older Jean Gabin, so that'd be interesting. And I love that film, Tushpao Grisby, and I like very much the films of Melville, you know. So I showed Bob Grisby. And in terms of the character, in terms of the how should I say, even the body language, movement is quieter, you know. It's more settled. It's more mature, you know. In terms of the music, the Barefoot Contessa and Anna and all this music that you hear from the film, that was very prevalent in the early 50s. And that's where I formed the basis of the score of the film. Because the radio was on all the time and records were playing, and the themes from those films were very popular, including Moritat, which is the theme from Threepenny Opera. Then there was the theme from Third Man. Movie themes were played all the time. And so this reminds me of 1950, 51 to 56. And so that was there. The music for Grisby is in the film. The actual Grisby music is a harmonica in the scene with Joe Pesci and Bob De Niro speaking in Italian. That is the actual score of that film. And that's one more note about that, and that is that French noir at that time played with the sound of the harmonica a great deal. This Rififi, and this film Griesby, and it was kind of a French, almost chanteur, almost like a chanteur. In fact, in the film we have Edith Piaf sing, because that music was played all the time. But there is a reference there, definitely, to the French noir.
Ancora una domanda di mezzo, se forse arriva prima lei.
Grazie, buongiorno. Francesco Di Brigida, cinematograph.it. Maestro Scorsese, una domanda per lei e anche per la produttrice. Intanto, come avete lavorato fisicamente sugli attori con questi CGI, cioè il ricostruire sui volti di De Niro, di Pesci, ricostruire un'età di 20-30 anni più giovani, come è stato proprio il montaggio applicato agli effetti speciali, e poi soprattutto questa tecnologia che lei dice sperimentale, come andrà a finire, come andrà a evolvere, perché io immagino magari in un futuro noi abbiamo dietro di lei Greta Garbo, che magari potrebbe recitare un film insieme a Will Smith, esatto, con DiCaprio, con Totò, e chi lo sa, che cosa ne pensate?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, when I say experimental, what I mean is that we were the experiment, yes. And also, as each week went by, the technology got better each week. So that things that we started doing in the beginning, we redid, you know, later on. But the actual way this was put together, there is something that the press has that we've given, which explains it's a very complex, mystical, process. And we did do a test with De Niro right after I shot Silence,
2015,
right?
yeah.
Well, describe the test, do you remember?
Yeah, we recreated a scene from Goodfellas, and we shot it with the cameras that ILM needed. They went away for 3 months, came back and showed us a very, very rough version of what it would ultimately be, probably 30% of what it would be, and it was transformative. I mean, it was incredible.
And that was only 30%?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very, very complex process that happens in post-production. So when we were shooting the film, we were not shooting the film with and seeing any of the de-aging until well into post-production, 6 months into post-production.
6 months, yeah.
So
it was.
We would have weekly reviews. We would we wouldn't actually see the whole film with all the effects.
Only recently.
Until about literally 6-7 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago, I'd say. Yeah, 6-7 weeks. And on the set, the camera